Hello, Lord Rudd and Lord Grenley. I'm Hugh Thompson. I'm taking you to the hotel I'm squatting in for the last year. It's closed because of COVID. I'm at the very top floor. I'll take a video of my room for you. And I'm trapped here, unable to return to my home, my leasehold home in Belfron Tower, because my flat's been requisitioned, including all the contents, for the last 4 years. So the building can be empty for rebuilding works. The new freeholder that took over in 2008 is broke, as though all the private social landlords borrow too much and then they find they have to pay it back and they can't afford it. So they've stolen this building built by the GLC, Belfron Tower, 25 stories, 149 flats, protected tenants, and 36 leaseholders who've lived there for years. I've been living there since 1985 as a tenant under the GLA and bought it in 1989. So I've been there 30 odd years. It's my home. But to get as you know, with rebuilding the Houses of Parliament, to get rid of the asbestos, if you decant everybody, it's only 9 billion. But if the work's done with everyone still working in it, it's 90 billion. So that's the only way the landlord could afford to have it done up, to sell the flats off, to dispose of private, people's property, which is theft, because he doesn't own the building, he's just the freeholder. Owns the ground rent, not the flats. The flats are owned by the occupants, the leaseholders and the tenants. Anyway, he was going to spend 40 million and sell them for 500,000 and make 40 million. But if he had tenants or leaseholders still in the building, and the contract would have to work around it, he couldn't just shut it down as a building site and just ignore the needs of the occupants. It would have cost 400 million. So that's why he had to break the law to decant everybody. So by demanding the tenants move out because of the works, the major works, it's possible if the works were done for the tenants, the needs of the building, the needs of the tenants. But the works were doing the building up to make it look like a new building. It's 50 years old. And so he can sell them for 999-year leases. If anyone's bought them, they're crazy. Because as you know, London clay dries and shrinks and the piles will eventually collapse. And the building eventually collapses. It's only got 30 years left on the plan before it's pulled down, built by Goldfinger. So we've got this crooked or broke. So when people are broke, they do desperate things. So he's already auctioned off, our private social property, public property, to his mates. I think it was 900 flats that he couldn't be bothered doing up because he didn't have the money. He doesn't have the money to do any maintenance, let alone do up the flats he stole off the Tower Hamlets. He took 3 estates off Tower Hamlets, brownfield estates, and stole them. There was no legal stock transfer. It was all done illegally, without any democratic control or process. I think I've given Lord Rudd an account of that. So I'm I'm off for a walk in the dark. Instead of exercising in my beautiful penthouse, watching television, cooking meals, staying healthy, using my exercise machines. So I'm a tramp. I'm a tramp. I've had my property stolen. I'll send you a link to a document produced by the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea. It's their code of conduct on how they treat blocks of tenants and leaseholders if they want to knock it down and rebuild it or put a road through it or whatever. And you'll see how it's meant to be done professionally. But a building can only be decanted forcefully if it's in the public interest. And the Secretary of State has to agree to it, or the council. But the council or the Secretary of State never gave Steve Stride, the Poplar Harca, and Belfrontower Developments Limited, who are the partners doing the actual works, running it, permission, saying that it was in the public interest. And then he would have given them the power to get the council to use the compulsory purchase order, and I'd be paid the asking price, not the asking price, the market price, 600,000 plus 30,000 in compensation under the compulsory purchase order agreement, and everyone would have been happy. We only paid 12,000 for it under the right to buy. But by blackmailing the 36 leaseholders into selling out, with the threat of having to be recharged for their share of the £40 million works of £250,000 each, they all gave in. They all sold up because they couldn't afford it. They didn't know that they didn't have to pay for renewals, only for fair wear and tear. And they were all shafted. They got at least two got 150,000 instead of 600,000 for their 20th floor two-bedroom flats. So that was fraud by abuse of position by the landlord, and he claimed that they had to take the market value, not their asking price. When you want to buy somebody's property and you don't own it, and you've got no power to make them sell it to you, except for blackmail, you have to pay their asking price. You can't come along to my flat and get a value and say, oh, it's worth 150,000. You have to sell it to me, or I bankrupt you. That's blackmail. So they're all blackmailed into selling up. Now, 6 of us out of the 36 stood our ground, so the only way he could get rid of me was to blackmail me into moving out with the threat of being bankrupted. So he sent me a malicious summons, which I had to settle out of court, because if I went into court and won, I would still have to, they would appeal, and I would still have to pay their legal fees. And Trowers and Hamlins LLP bankrupted 5 of us previously, leaseholders. The leaseholders went to court and won, and then they repealed and ended up with a 500,000 legal fee between the 5 of them, and they all went bankrupt. So you can't go into court against a freeholder because all his legal costs are recouped from the leaseholder's service charge account. So I was forced to hand the flat in, vacant possession, expecting them to negotiate my asking price. I had a friend acting as a mediator, and they started off at 400,000, which is a lot more than anyone else got. But I knew it was worth a lot more than that, but they never agreed my asking price until the transfer took place. I gave them vacant possession, and so now they owe me my asking price. But I can't go to court and sue them for it, because I'd lose everything. So that's what I'm hoping you good guys will do, you good lords will do, is to look into this and realise that they can't take possession of a flat and rent it from a leaseholder. That's nonsense. There's no such law. They can only pay the asking price or just leave me be in my flat. And if they had to cut off some services, well, you know, they'd provide bottled water or a candle if they cut off the electricity. They couldn't do it. So I'll send you the code of conduct that the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea use, so you see how I should have been protected. And so they negotiate, you know, the market price, and they pay you, and then let you move into a rented flat, because I've got nowhere else to go. So I've got all my house, all my worldly goods in storage for 4 years, going on 5 years. So God knows they're all covered in black mold by now, and the moths have eaten all my clothes. So I'm just off to get a bit of exercise, go to the local church, St Mary's, and the Boltons, and I'll do a video when I get back of my tiny little room, the only room I can afford. So thank you for listening, and well done for looking after an illegally evicted leaseholder. You can't take property off a leaseholder without paying for it.